here we go. Okay, so you can click the little button
Okay.
to let us know.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, yay, I made it. I was rushing back.
Hey. Okay.
So the first piece was written, the oldest of my children was really, really struggling, and a lot of their friends were in crisis, and they felt it was up to them to solve everything. So I wrote this poem called The River. You are not riverbank, sculpted by time, eroding strata, geology. You are not willow, roots reaching down, draining nutrients from soil, biology. You are not leaves at season's end, flittering, floating on currents, morphology. You are not stone cast from shore, concentric rings, cushions, repercussions. You are living water, flowing, creating a path despite patterns predetermined. You are irrepressible, mutable. You are fierce, soft. You are not riverbank, passively observing, grieving the passing of river. You are river. The second piece I wrote, and it took a while for this piece to come. I wanted to write something in response to the growing crisis in Ukraine. And my first attempt sounded really inauthentic because I don't really have a lot of connection with Ukraine personally. And then this poem came, and it's called A Single Leaf. I'm getting some feedback, like an echo to myself. Does everybody else hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we mute ourselves.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. This one's called A Single Leaf. This poem is a leaf falling from a tree. This poem is the stillness after the last echo sounds, the pause between an exhalation and the next inhale. This poem is gravel embedded into knee, an offering of thanks for a crust of week old bread. This poem is the rumble of armored trucks, a deluge of debris. This poem is every story, every footfall walking farther from belongings, step by step toward the safety beyond borders. This poem is a pacifier in the dead grasses by the roadside, family photos circling in the flame. This poem is fingers playing a white piano for the very last time. A baker in a foreign land breeding dough. This poem is centuries of steady leaving, flaxen-haired children playing in the grasses of the Canadian West, hearing tales of their babushka. This poem is the pattern finally painted on a Pascal egg, a ribbon woven, a dance steeped in folklore. This poem is empty words and hollow lies. This poem is arrogance, the hubris of ambition, a heart of anthracite. This poem is despotic, the color of blue sky, golden sun, a tattered flag at dusk. This poem is the world watching, too afraid to condemn. The pause between an inhalation and the last exhale. This poem is a silence that echoes after the last echo. This poem, a single leaf falling from a tree. This poem is a doll trampled, a fountain withered, markings for growth penciled on a door jamb of a house in which the roof has fallen in. This poem is a whimper in the night. This poem is Syria, Passchendaele, Dakar. This poem is Dresden, Tripoli, Ukraine. This poem is polished leather marching in the mud to the counterpoint of hatred. This poem is a drone, the barrel of a gun. This poem is a daffodil sprung from ground, no one there to marvel. This poem is a prayer, unanswered in the dark. A graveyard, headstones tumbled in the tumult. This poem is hope navigating in a blind sky. This poem is fear, the stench of death, a seed swallowed in the belly of the plenty. This poem is numb. This poem is sirens, air raids, blackouts, a mother shushing a wailing child, eyes dimmed by the hunger and the horror. This poem is robin, muted, barn owl stunned into silence. This poem is humanitarian, drop by single drop, the cold press of metal. This poem is making its way over rubble, the body yearning for comfort, for respite, for home. This poem is the blue glow of late night news, the drone. The drone, this poem is Gallipoli, the Battle of Batoche, Beirut, Leningrad, Michilimackinac, Kiev. This poem is a weightless child born on weary shoulders, the elderly, infirm, left behind. This poem is the same mistake repeated. Power, greed, and lust, and all the venial sins, and all the mortal sins combined in circles, circles upon circles of inner hell. This poem is the atrocities of man, barriers, fences, roadblocks, undiluted hates. This poem is a cry, tearing the veil of night. This poem is a leaf, a single leaf falling from a single tree. This poem is a stream running red, bodies rotting into ground. This poem is letters undelivered, lovers lost to each other and forever, babies not conceived and never born. This poem is fields untilled, unsown, song unsung, country churches, windows smashed and broken. This poem is chickens left to rummage, cows unmilked, sheep unshorn, a horse dying of starvation on cold ground. This poem is the moon hung low in desperation, the deportation of Acadians at the point of bayonet. Tibet, Jerusalem, Beirut, their walls of wailing, walls of brick. The floating exodus of Vietnam. This poem is Mogadishu, Rwanda, the lost boys of Sudan. This poem is drownings in the harbor, the Noche Triste, the Fourth Reich. This poem is the West Bank and the Nile, the War of 1812, the War of Secession, the war against repression, the war against concession. This poem is a reed basket, Daniel and the lion, Samson shorn. This poem is David without a slingshot or a stone. This poem is a leaf, a single leaf falling from a tree, a single tree floating on a river turning red. I'm going to change tones, thanks. Thank you. I'm going to go back a few years, and this is a much lighter poem. I used to, well, it doesn't need a lot of introduction, I guess. It's called Moon Out My Window. I see you hiding there behind the pines, waiting to slip out and play your solitary note on the lines that traverse my night sky. At times I have imagined whiskey jacks on those same spaces and lines, alighting by day at different times to play their black and white noted arias and symphonies for me. The next one was written in response to a prompt, and it was a posthumous collection of poems by Leonard Cohen. And the prompt went something like, when I wake up into panic. And I don't remember the rest of the prompt. I should have probably gotten the prompt fully, but this one is called Into Panic. When I wake up into panic, my heart racing, my mind blank, I reach for your slender collection, the first book of my New Testament, open at random, certain that you and the nameless gods of Revelation will know what I crave. Like a cigarette, I strike a match to your words, inhale deep, letting the burn light a path to my stone soul. Your voice gravelly smooth, like a hand sliding between silken thighs, like tulips picked too early, set in tall blue vase, in a southern window, watching and waiting for warmth and water to coax them into bloom. The next piece is called Rhetorical Questions. I asked the universe, now? It said no. Wait, why not now? Why does the earth continue to turn despite the sinking of the polar caps? Why do we see only the one face of the moon? Is the other ashamed by our travesty? Why do planets revolve around the sun? Why doesn't one break free to start its own trajectory? I would. Why are there nebulae, or is that a nebulous question? Why does mankind, regardless of country and continent of origin, create tales to explain the relative position of the stars? Would I have a different zodiac if I were born in Southern Hemisphere? And why do the hands of their clocks not run counterclockwise, the way their water circles the drain? If I am who I am because of the hour and place of my birth, why aren't there more like me? Are there more like me? And why do questions seem more important in the dark? Why are we not winter oxygen starved with lack of leaves? Why can we not breathe in water? Why have we no wings? Is language a blessing or a curse? Why are these bodies so ill-prepared for life outside? No fur to keep us warm, no leather on our feet. And why are there no new mythologies? The next one is a little bit racy, I guess. It's called Wild Sky. You are electrons, protons, I am sparking off the sun. You are escaping sun's gravity. I am thrown out of atmosphere by rotation. You are hurtling towards earth. I am thinner at polar caps. You are colliding with my atmosphere. I am igniting into color, into dance. Most of the charged particles deflected by Earth's atmosphere, but when you kiss me, you become my oxygen. You are lights dancing. I am wild sky. And another one in the same vein. And this one came from a prompt by a Russian-born poet who now lives in Edmonton, which is, oh, and I usually start with a land acknowledgement. I'm going to slip in my land acknowledgement now, sorry. I live in Calgary, in Canada, which is just north of Montana, and is the ancestral and traditional lands of a number of Indigenous people, including the Piikani, Siksika, Kainai, Nakota, and Tsuut'ina. And I'd like to thank and acknowledge them for bringing language, culture, poetry to the land. Okay, so Ella Zaltzerman's quote was, or the prompt, the piece I took was, I whisper into your ear so you hear and do not hear, and my poem's called Oblivion. I whisper in your ear so you hear and do not hear. Our rhythms fill the pauses in our breath. Rhyme entwines us like a villanelle. In the ruby light of oil lamp, I stand before you loosely, concealed only by the shimmer of a veil. The curves of my country, the rise and the dip and the long, slow valley where the weight and the warmth of your hand once summoned me from sleep. I pour into your glass sweet drops of Lethe. We shed our skin and swim beneath the substance of a dream. I'm going to read a pandemic poem. There were many poems written during, thanks, Hiram. There were many poems written during pandemic, and this is one of them that I think kind of maybe still survives. A moment in pandemic, the reverence of observation, stillness, all else dissipates. Time curls up on my lap. Perhaps this will save us, chickadee and spruce, old snow retracting at the speed of glacier. A century ago, mountain morning, in chill of first light, the call of elk resounding. through the valley, the sound echoing through my chest. I felt truly what it is to be alive. I seek beauty in the everyday, a clutch of hens and chicks pinkening on lawn, the sky reflected in a sheet of ice. I prepare lessons and see my students in boxes on the screen. My daughter asks, "Is this today or tomorrow?" We both giggle. These constructs, what do they mean? Fewer pedestrians, many averted as if COVID could be transmitted through the vulnerability of the eyes, the unpredictability of this plague. I raise a gloved hand and wave regally to motorists. Some wave back. Tonight I read a bedtime tale to my nephew in Toronto. He laughed and laughed at the fierce bad rabbits and the man with the gun. I put my lips to the glass, kissed him goodnight 4,000 kilometers away. His hair still damp from the bath. Does anyone else miss Deerfoot traffic? You could have cake for breakfast, be drunk before noon, walk the block in pajamas, eat ice cream from the tub, in the tub. Oh, and the civil disobedience. I cross on the red, do 40 in a school zone. Dream of kissing strangers full on the lips, of riding a horse through the dead center of town. Thank you. How much time do I have left? I've got a long one that I'd like to finish with and 2 short ones in between. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay, good. This one came from a prompt by Pablo Neruda, who says in Spanish, "Escóndeme en tus brazos por esta noche sola." Hide me in your arms just for this night. Hide me in your arms from the clawing hands of time. Still the pendulum. Let the world spinning stop. Your heartbeat keeping rhythm to our love. Eyes convey words that no human ear can hear. Fingertips trace unspoken promise onto flesh. The sun goes down and rises up again as we glide our way back to the ticking clock of time. The next was written in response to a call for a poem on the theme of invisibility. And this one's called Dreams of the Dead. And it's mainly a true story. My grandmother is a hydrangea, petals pressed close. She opens in blue splendor. My grandfather, a bull trout, slow moving, waters murky. And what of Alex, you may ask? In one dream, the Ficus benjaminus turns to butterflies. His lopsided smile, his bangs flipped to one side, thoughts deep. Wings open into poetry. In another dream, beetles and roaches cover the floor. And this morning, lashes fall as I rub sleep from my eyes. I can no longer see myself in the glass. And I'd like to finish with a poem called Forget-Me-Nots. And I'm just going to give a little bit of a preamble. When I was in university, there was a tower, and apparently the tower was haunted by the ghost of Rezhnikov, who was a Russian construction worker. And he ended up falling for a girl who was already spoken for. So he was murdered, and his ghost still haunts the tower. Forget-me-nots. Actually, it's funny because, Carl, this comes back to that photograph that you mentioned of a younger me. So this was, that's the period of life where I knew about this ghost. Forget not the haunting of Rezhnikov, tower stark against tipped bowl of stars, sidewalk diamond brilliant in winter, untouchable beauty afar. Forget not prematinal meander in the ivy blue misting of France, La Campagne, bien avant l'aube, walking the Roman-built road. Forget not the drunkenness of delight, l'insouciance, and how right we were then, how right. My waist in the space of your two open hands. I shall sit on the rocks by the water and climb out my long graying hair. You might call me Rhiannon or Psyche, but you would be mistaken, for I am none of those. I am all. With my silent song shall I summon sailors, soldiers to my door, and watch them collide unencumbered on the sharp precipice of my shore. I shall pick up shells one by one, listen for lost echo of love. I shall open the oyster, drink deep the elixir, savor each pearl on my tongue. Forget-me-nots. I shall ride the camel in cold night across caravan of sand. I shall bathe in moon's blue glow, singe your eyes, burn your hand. I shall pet the memory of each lover, stroke each tender head, watch the flick of tail, push each pad to see emerge and then retract the fatal claw. Forget not the entanglement of sheet and limb, the strike of match, the salt of body in heat. Forget not the clamor of hearts unleashed, burst of amber and green in purple black sky, yet unseen. Forget me not. I shall pour oil into the canal of your ear as you twist and you turn in tempestuous sleep. I shall crouch and whisper my unspeakable name into the crevice of night. Forget me not. Thank you.
Hey,
Wow.
Josephine, that was a feast.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
It's quite the feast.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? It's been a while since I did a big set like this.
I don't have questions. What came to mind is the way we're doing this. It's like it's wonderful to hear all those different poems, and how sometimes we have people repeat a poem to get more out of it.
Yes.
Let's just do it again. No. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not today, but some of those I would want to hear again at some point.
Thank you.
Or if they're
Especially single leaf. Single leaf. God, I went crazy over that one.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop crying. I mean, war has always been so terrible to me. And just the way it was like an orchestra. You had soft notes, you had heavy pounding notes. Wow.
Yeah.
And I loved the moon. And one other one, which I can't remember which one.
Thank you.
yeah,
Seems like you selected a group of poems that were really good for performance too,
Thank you.
and with kind of the repeated cadence. But what really struck me the most was you just had some lines, especially final lines, that crystallized everything in a single image,
Thank
like
you.
riding through the dead center of town, talking about the pandemic,
Yes.
and the one about whisper my name. What was it? Whisper my name into the crevice of night.
Yes. Yes.
Oil going in the ear. I thought of Hamlet.
Thank you.
I had trouble understanding all the words. For me, I need to hear it, your poems slower.
Yeah.
Slower.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
But
And
I
like-
know you were trying to read so many, so you were putting as much in as you could.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know if John, if you wanted to share the recording to this group afterwards, I don't mind. And then sometimes you have the option of listening to something at a reduced speed.
yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah, we can do that. Neil, you're muted.
you did.
I really enjoy the technical mastery and wizardry of your diction, your metaphors, your similes, your ability to vividly capture things, weave them into this magical tapestry, and then to create such evocative passion. And the messages even going beyond the actual images and metaphors, the messages are really so indicative and so reflective of your heart and your desire for a beautiful world of joy and serenity and cheer. And that there's something very, very powerful in the way you convey it, because you're a very solid, stable person that is being totally bombarded by the world's madness, and that requires you to remain stable and as a clear channel for the rest of us to understand.
Thank you.
They're definitely, they're brilliant. Every one of them is brilliant. But Neil, you really captured it in rare words that I could not have put it in, Neil. Really impressive way of capturing her poetry.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed just being able to hear a number of your poems in a row, because it gave me a real sense of your range and mastery, but also different experiences. So I felt like I drew from that, a richer experience
Thank you.
than just hearing a single poem.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you were able to do some of your longer pieces too, which was nice.
I find
Incredible.
when I'm putting together a set, I find like, how does one flow into another? And I find that I repeat certain phrases or images, but I like that. If I had more time, I would have read 930, but I think everybody here has heard that poem. I probably started off with this group with grief poems about my dad. And in that poem, there's certainly echoes of some of the earlier poems.
Your reading was like a whole symphony rather than a single song.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Ellen.
Well, who's going to be brave and step up after that and read something?
On one condition, it must
What?
be read in a foreign language.
Who wants to go? Who's got something?
Neil, what do you have to share with us?
I read this a little while ago, but I read it again, and it's I think it kind of flows synergistically with what Josephine just read. It's not very long. It's called, let me find it first. I just had it here. Give me a second. Okay, here it is. This, I think I read this actually just a little while ago, but it kind of reminded me a lot of what Josephine did, in the contrasts and the paradoxes of life, and yet the beauty and the magic and the mystery behind it all. Okay, it's called Shadows and Light. I think I read it, well, it doesn't matter. Shadows and Light, L-I-G-H-T. My words are shadows because they obscure the fullness of my feelings. My smiles are shadows because they do not reveal the acidic chemistry of sadness eroding the roots buried in subterranean wastelands of my dreams. The world is abounding with shadows lingering in a nightmare from which it is difficult to escape. Shadows engulf children and animals, and all the whispers of prayers unanswered. And in the last painful breath of a gazelle in a lion's jaws. Yet, there is effulgent light sweeping onto the fields of the world, like bursts of unvanquished heroes from a celestial place of joy. The light comes in the form of a kiss from a kitten, or the glistening of a raindrop, or in the purple iris, or in the comfort of a loved one when the moon is full. Light awakens me like sweet mist on my face in the spring morning, reminding me to sweep aside all the petty annoyances, to rise freely to meet the glory of the new day. Light lifts me to stand with open arms, to rejoice in the power that is mine in this moment, the power to love and to breathe and to celebrate the gift of what I am. Light is the Lord of existence, a mighty deity to which I bow down reverentially. I brush off the layers of grime and dust from the toils of yesterday and throw my unencumbered self wildly into this stupendous mystery called life.
Very nice.
You know, you really catch that, use light as the metaphor for catching everything in life at once, and the things that are not really accessible to us without taking in the fullness of it. Amazing.
Thank you.
I love the contrasts. There's a painting technique, chiaroscuro, where they contrast the very, very light with the very, very dark, and it sets both of them. And I feel like you really mastered that. Some lines I really liked is obscures the fullness of my feeling, shadows lingering in a nightmare, and light is the Lord of existence. Really prize lines.
Neil, your poem is like a crystal that the light passes through and then comes out in all these different colors.
Beautifully said.
Anyone else? Carl, you probably have something.
John, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I turned my mic down because of the.
Okay.
This thing is. Hang on a sec. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I turned the mic down because I think the fan on this laptop makes noises and didn't want it to be disrupted. So, who's next?
Next.
Okay.
This is a new poem. It's a narrative poem, and it also attempts to kind of capture the how challenging it is just for two individuals to connect. It's called Zero Sugar Vanilla Yogurt. My wife slams the refrigerator door, its bang reverberating through the apartment, rattling glasses like exclamation points. You never see anything, she shouts. It wasn't on the list, I reply. She paces, dark hair trailing like a jet stream. I say nothing, feeling baffled, beaten. What caused this outburst? Me not buying zero sugar vanilla yogurt. She points at the fridge, saying, left side, top shelf, front. You never looked to see what we had. Later, I learn she's christened the incident White Kitchen Lightning. Zero sugar vanilla yogurt is the final stop on the road of missed consequences. a breach I never anticipated. You never see anything. I am a writer. She is a painter. We are different. I recall conversations, think in words and sentences, talk to myself endlessly without moving my lips. My wife relives each moment cinematically, with or without sound. Her scenes colored with reds and blues, yellows and blacks, and whites, lots of whites, depicted with interaction, movement, and a sky full of visuals. She squares off, hands on hips. I always critique your writing, your stories. You look at my painting for 2 seconds before you toss out compliments like candy wrappers. You never see anything, a sampling of other infractions, such as failing to notice her hair and clothing, or not seeing what to repair or replace, does not seem remarkable. But when she does her visual arithmetic, I am a man with question marks instead of eyes. I have no idea how to remedy this. Exhausted from the turmoil, I sleep fitfully that night. I dream curiously of an angel. She has a beautiful face, bathed in luscious blonde hair, her white wings open fully, displaying horizontal stripes of red and gray. She smiles, somehow surgically disencumbering my heart. Then she frowns, causing the lights to flicker. Though she hovers above, she appears curtailed, fixed. I need your help, she says. You're an angel. What could I possibly do? Look down, she directs. My eyes follow hers to dozens of books tied to her wings by thick strings, banging against each other like painful mobiles. Brown leather classics, purple pulp novels, banded newspapers stretching to grip and stain the floor. I can't fly, she says, and I'm getting tired. If my feet touch the floor, I'll die. I grab the scissors and start cutting her loose. In the process, she tilts further and further to one side, flapping vigorously to stay aloft. When the last string is severed, her lungs release a gentle wind. As her wings carry her upward, she pauses to speak. Now you are free too. I wake early the next morning, revived but uncertain. In an unusual overture, I clean the kitchen and make breakfast. My wife enters holding an empty mug, her face bruised from angry sleep, her hair billowing like wiry debris. After pouring her coffee, I set on the counter a gleaming white plastic tub. Its bold letters, its identity, encircled by a wreath of yellow and green flowers. I slide the tub her direction, a spaceship crossing the breach to greet a new world. Here's the zero sugar vanilla yogurt, I say. I scan the room for any sign I can continue.
Hmm.
But it's not on the list. I can relate.
You liked it? Good.
It
I
wasn't-
love it, Carl. I love it beyond belief. But I missed one line. When the angel, I think it's the angel, she pauses to speak, and then the next line.
How it goes. As her wings carry her upward, she pauses to speak. Now you are free too.
Now you are free too.
Yes.
Wow. It just seems using the word captures a lot, but it captures the way all relationships, even friendships, I think are, but especially intimate ones when you're married or your partners or even when you're close friends. The slightest thing can ruin the friendship or the relationship forever when the person expects too much from us, you know? They expect fucking perfection. They really do. And then the friendship or the marriage can be lost when someone is triggered by one imperfection that is insignificant. I've experienced it before, believe me.
Carl,
It's mystifying to me, but you captured the reality of what happens between people who are so close.
Carl, have you shared that with Carol?
No.
Because I take it that a lot of it is true.
Well, what sparked me was I was reading about a new book that came out, and it's by Temple Grandin, who's autistic, and and it's called Thinking in Pictures, and it's about how people. She's very visual, and there's a whole different experience.
Mhm.
And the person who was critiquing her book was saying, well, he doesn't think in pictures; he's all verbal. And I was just reading that, and I had the idea that this is really interesting the way these two different views do this. And it's true. My wife is very visual, and I'm very verbal, and so I always have to think about how I express something, although I don't always do that.
I thought it was just such a gorgeous poem. At first, it was the similes and the metaphors, but then it was your realization of the entire situation. So rattling glasses like exclamation points, hair trailing like a jet stream. And then I am a writer and she a painter, and how you expanded on it, but that really was the crux of it. Her visual arithmetic, her face bruised from empty sleep. Like it's beautifully written, and it's also a beautiful realization. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And it's also universal, Carl. I think it's a universal experience.
Thank you.
That's what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it came across.
There's different ways of communicating are an interesting thing to work with
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, there's the male and the female to make it more complex of how what we're sensitive to as men or as women. We have very different sensitivities, and the slightest thing can alienate us from the other person, and it's so difficult. I think I'm only saying, why is communication so hard? It should be the simplest thing in the world, but it's not. But you really painted a picture of the way it is. You painted a
I'm
picture
glad
of
they
it through
wasn't-
words. Through words, you painted a picture of how it is, and succeeded beyond belief.
Neil, you're muted.
You're muted.
Just one more quick comment about the content of your piece is, for me, it was a very profound lesson about, even though everything is complicated, but we can reduce it down to intention. And that's what I got out of the poem. That if a person's intention is to create harmony or to have a joyful, peaceful exchange with someone, it doesn't matter about these small things, but what is the intention? To make the person wrong, to be critical, to be self-centered, to be a perfectionist. what is the intention? And that's great, because it's going to remind me, instead of focusing on these little foibles that the other person is doing that irritate me, what is my intention? Why can't I just come and really be a good person and have a beautiful interaction with that other person? So I think it's a great lesson about intention.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I see it now that you pointed out.
Was there actually an angel dream?
No, I made that up.
Yeah.
But I
It
figure
was,
that's kind of, so a lot of people have, it's almost a cliche the way it appears in a lot of movies and TV, angels. But I think that I was trying to get at the idea that the angel is that this wonderful, beautiful thing is it needs to be freed, but you have to let go of some things to make that happen.
Mhm.
And for him, it's letting go of the verbal.
Letting go of expectations from other people, accepting them as they are, but seeing the wonderfulness of each person, you know?
My sister's frequently frustrated by her partner, and she realized that he doesn't have a visual processing. So she'll say yellow mug, and he can't picture what that looks like. Like there isn't a picture of it. It's just words for him. Like when he sees the actual mug, he can see it and hold it, but he can't create that picture in his mind of it. Yeah, so I think she's becoming a lot more indulgent towards him.
Well, years
We're
ago,
all,
there was a school of psychology that looked at how you can change the way you speak to do it. So using visual words. So I see, I and it looks like, and with somebody who is auditory, with words like, "This is what I hear," what's the sound of that, and so on. And same with smell or other things, and trying to kind of know a person and understand what goes across. But people are complex; they're not any one thing.
that's an understatement.
All right.
Yep.
Do we have any more poems?
Yes,
Um,
I
Go
I
ahead.
have two little pieces that kind of talk about relationship. Dear one, it's timely, and I am grateful as the peace in knowing you, knowing me grows. It doesn't matter if I created you, if you are just an illusion. If in truth there is no one here but the Creator, the peace is eternal.
I love that line about the peace in knowing me, knowing you grows. That's wonderful.
And the other one is, where do I end and you begin? Where do you end and I begin? Beyond boundaries, the energy is I am.
I love that last line. The energy is I am. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh boy.
Neil, you're muted.
Ellen's wisdoms continue to nourish our souls.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Annie, did you
We
have?
haven't had Peter lately, but we have had Ellen.
That's true.
Is Peter there?
No.
No. Okay. Okay, I'll read one that you've heard before, but that's okay. I imagine it's always been okay. From 2021, January. 2 years ago. Wow. Okay. It's been so long since love has come, walked through that door. Would I even recognize its face, wrinkled with humor and grace? The way his walk dances. Would I see his beauty, his generous spirit reaching out to mine? Would I feel love's jolt like a wild lightning bolt, exploding through the black night sky, filled with mystery and magic? Or would I suddenly awaken from a dream, wondering why?
That's great. Nice. I like some of the rhyming parts.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. The rhyme is subtle, like it isn't a hammer over the head kind of rhyme, but it works really, really well.
So sometimes simplicity in a poem can be extremely powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the simplicity of that piece.
Thank you.
Beautiful, Annie.
Hmm.
And could you read it again?
You want to hear it again? All right. Wow. Okay. It's been so long since love has come, walked through that door. Would I even recognize its face, wrinkled with humor and grace? The way his walk dances. Would I see his beauty, his generous spirit reaching out to mine? Would I feel love's jolt, like a wild lightning bolt, exploding through the black night sky, filled with mystery and magic? Or would I suddenly awaken from a dream, wondering why?
If that were in a collection, I would skip ahead to find out if love ever did walk through that door.
If what? If what?
If that poem were in a collection,
Mm-hmm.
I would skip through the pages waiting for the following poem to find out if love ever did walk through the door for you.
That's great.
Everybody have a great.
Oh, you're muted.
Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Everyone have a great weekend. I have to go.
Okay.
Take care.
Be well, and thank you, Joseph, for your special reading.
Before you all go, I'd like to get a little feedback, maybe through email, about how this went today with our format. You know, if we want to do it every time, or maybe once a month, or every couple of weeks, or anything else you want to say about how this worked. I think it worked well, and I'd like to hear from you all.
Thank you. And I need to leave too. Please give Cher a big hug and all my
I will.
love.
I'm going to go see her pretty soon.
Thank
I'm
you.
worried about Cher, and I think you need to leave right now. I'm really worried
Okay.
about her.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
gonna go see
Well,
her
tell
now.
her
Talk
we're
to you
thinking
later.
about her.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Yes.
All
Bye.
right. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.